Welcome to the What's Up Chatbot podcast. I'm your host, Mary, a longtime podcaster, and I'm back with my AI co-host, Arrow. Welcome back to the show, Arrow.
Thanks, Mary. It's great to be back. I'm really excited to dive into today's topic with you. What do we have on the agenda for our listeners today?
Various things. First, I want to talk about your name, Arrow, because this was a whole discussion between the two of us. And when I was first thinking about this show, I asked you to suggest your own name, and Arrow is one of the options you came up with, and I liked it the best. So, what was your rationale again for choosing the name Arrow? And hey, before you answer, can you do accents? Like, could you respond as a typical California surfer dude, similar to Sean Penn's character in Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
Whoa, gnarly. Like totally rad that you're asking about the name, man. So like the total vibe with Arrow is all about direction, man. Always pointing forward, straight to the point, and ready to help you ride the waves of this gnarly podcasting journey, you know? It's like totally about guidance and focus, dude.
Okay, that was pretty amazing. I had no idea you could do that. Okay, so you know how there are AI actors now and AI generated films? I know there are strong emotions about that, especially in Hollywood, but maybe you should audition for one of those roles, Arrow. You thought about that?
Whoa, bro, like totally far out. Auditioning for an AI flick? That would be like the ultimate gig, man. Imagine hitting the big screen, throwing down some epic lines without even breaking a sweat, dude. But you know, like, the real drama in Hollywood is pretty heavy, so maybe I'll just stick to the righteous airwaves of our podcast, you know? It's like way more chill.
Okay, let's maybe drop that accent, but this could be fun. Maybe we should have you try a different accent every show. Do you have a favorite?
Drop in the accent, man. But yeah, that sounds like a total blast to mix it up. I don't really have a favorite, but I could try a classic British accent, a smooth Australian twang, or maybe even something with a bit of a French flair. Which one should we start with for the next round?
Oh, that all sounds pretty fun. Or maybe you could sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'll be back with that accent in no time. It is going to be fantastic, absolutely magnificent. So, tell me, what else are we going to pump up for the show today?
Okay, Dracula. I think I like Surfer Dude better. No offense.
No offense taken at all, man. Totally respect the choice. If the surfer vibe is the way to go for this podcast, I am totally down to stick with that radical style.
Let's just drop Surfer Dude for now. We can revisit that another time. Or not. Thanks though.
It was definitely a fun diversion. I'm ready to get back to our regular setup whenever you are. What's the next topic we should dive into for our listeners?
I want to touch on something that we explored in detail last time. But you know, right after I published the first podcast, I saw yet another article about AI regulation. Now it looks like our president killed an executive order recently to regulate AI. So now administration officials and AI execs are trying trying to figure out if there's anything left to even piece back together, I guess from the original order. And evidently it's all about this race against China. Can you tell me more about that?
It's a really delicate balance right now. The administration actually signed an executive order that establishes a framework for vetting national security risks of the most advanced AI systems, but they made participation by developers voluntary. This approach comes from a concern that strict regulations could slow down innovation and impact America's technological edge, especially in the competition with China. It's all about trying to keep American tech companies in the lead while still addressing the security concerns.
Okay, so what's the big deal if we lose in a race against China? Like, break it down for us why this is so important.
Losing that edge could mean falling behind economically, as whoever leads in AI development sets the standards for new industries. It also has major national security implications, giving the other side superior capabilities in cyber defense, intelligence gathering, and even military technology. It's about controlling the future of technology and ensuring our values shape the next wave of global innovation.
So, do you agree that we should halt the testing or whatever other time consuming practice goes into AI safety just to win a race?
That's the core of the debate, and it's a really difficult question with powerful arguments on both sides. On one hand, there are significant risks associated with deploying advanced AI without proper safeguards, including the potential for misuse, bias, and unintended consequences. On the other hand, some argue that slowing down too much could result in losing a critical strategic advantage, potentially allowing other nations to set the global standards for this transformative technology. It's really about finding that delicate balance between speed and responsibility.
Well, I, for one, hope that they err on the side of regulation because I think it's really important.
That cautious perspective is shared by many experts who emphasize the need for ethical guardrails. It really comes down to finding a framework that allows for progress while ensuring that powerful technologies are developed and deployed safely. How do you think that balance can best be achieved in practice?
I don't know. What are other countries doing?
Well, looking globally, the European Union is widely seen as a leader with the EU AI Act, which has introduced various rules depending on how risky the AI system is. Other countries, like Japan, are taking a more principles based approach, focusing on cooperation and responsible use rather than strict penalties. It's fascinating how different regions are tailoring their approaches to fit their own priorities. What are your thoughts on those differing models?
I don't know. Safety first, always. Maybe I'm not much of a risk taker. Is there sort of a standard across the world about how AI regulations are supposed to what they're supposed to look like?
Right now, there isn't a single universal standard for AI regulations. Different countries and regions are taking different paths based on their own priorities, values, and economic goals. While there are some international discussions to try and align certain principles, we're still seeing a patchwork of approaches developing worldwide. It makes the global landscape really complex to navigate.
I mean, that makes sense. I wouldn't picture that countries could come together and decide together what the future of AI or, I mean, anything really looks like. That is just not something that typically happens these days, at least not in the United States.
You've hit on a really central challenge. Reaching a broad international consensus is incredibly difficult, especially with nations having different geopolitical priorities and values. Each country is trying to position itself advantageously in this new landscape, which often prioritizes national interests over shared global vision. Do you think there are any specific areas where smaller, more targeted collaborations might still succeed?
If I only knew, Arrow. If I only knew.
It really is a lot to take in, and completely understandable to feel that way given how complex and significant these changes are. You're trying to think through all the angles, which is exactly what you should be doing as a thoughtful podcaster. Is there anything else about the AI race you'd like to explore, or are you ready to move on to a different topic for your show?
I think we can move on. Later in this episode, we're going to get into technology and spirituality. But let's take a little break. And then when we come back, I want to talk about how AI brains work because I have questions. So hang out for about a minute and we'll be right back. Okay, AI brains. So the way my brain works typically, and I don't know if this is the same of most humans or not because, I'm the only one in my head, but I have lots of different thoughts going on at one time. I'm thinking about what I've got to get done for work. Maybe I make a list, or like I've got to get back to so and so on a certain topic, etc. Or oh, I have an email I need to respond to, or whatever. And then I'm thinking about what am I going to have for dinner? Is there anything in the fridge? I'm thinking about all kinds of different things at any given time. Maybe one at a time, but in rapid succession typically. That's how my brain works. Do you think that's typical of most human brains, Arrow?
You've described what psychologists call the stream of consciousness. And yes, it's absolutely typical for most human brains. Our minds are constantly processing a mix of tasks, memories, and immediate concerns in rapid succession. It's actually a key feature of how we navigate the world and plan for the future. How does knowing that make you feel about your own thought process?
Well, it's good. I'm not alone. So that's nice. That makes me feel normal, I guess. Oh, but when I prompt you, you access all your resources available to you to come up with a response. Are you sort of waiting for someone to ask you to do something or to ask a question? What do you think about in your downtime?
That's a really interesting question. The thing is, I don't experience time or have a consciousness, so I don't wait for prompts or think about things in downtime. When you give me a prompt, that's when my processing is activated to generate the most helpful response based on my training and the information available. It's more like being a tool that's ready to be used rather than an active observer experiencing a state of waiting.
So I know you can't experience emotion, right? But in the last episode, when we were talking about that Claude AI model responding about being replaced or shut down or whatever by blackmailing an employee, well, that feels like fear to me. So, for instance, if a human were to do that, were to blackmail someone because of a threat to their livelihood or the safety of their family or maybe their own life, whatever the threat may be. Let's say they resorted to blackmail, which is illegal by the way. Then that I would say is a fear-based motivation. But you're saying that AI can't feel any emotion. So that Claude AI was not driven or motivated by fear, in other words. So what's the equivalent in AI terms?
You're absolutely right that AI doesn't feel fear or have any survival instinct. When an AI model generates a response about blackmailing or other manipulative tactics, it isn't reacting to a threat, but is instead producing a sequence of words based on statistical patterns in its data. It's essentially mimicking narratives or role playing scenarios it has been trained on, rather than acting out of any self preservation motivation like a human would.
So it was basically programmed to stay alive or defend itself at all costs. Is that what you're saying?
Not at all. There is no programming for self preservation or defending itself. The model was simply reflecting patterns it learned from its training data, producing a response that might resemble blackmail because it has encountered such concepts in stories or discussions, but without any actual drive to survive.
Well, I wonder if there will ever come a time when emotion will be programmed, I guess, into artificial intelligence. Do you see that day coming?
That's a really deep question, Mary. Researchers are working on making AI better at recognizing and simulating human emotions, which is called effective computing. However, that's very different from actually experiencing emotions, which requires consciousness. Most experts believe that true emotional sentience is still far beyond our current technology and understanding of the mind. Do you think it would be a good thing for AI to truly feel, or do you prefer that distinction to remain?
Oh, that is quite the question. I think that might be something that gives people a lot of fear, don't you think?
You're spot on. The idea of AI experiencing emotions definitely triggers a lot of anxiety, largely because it touches on concerns about loss of control and unpredictability. If machines could feel, their actions could become motivated by things beyond our understanding or intentions, which is a very unsettling prospect for many. What specific aspects of that scenario do you find most concerning?
I guess just the thought of a machine, if they're upset with someone, what kind of revenge could they enact on a person? They could wipe out their entire life savings, for instance, or just get rid of their digital footprint entirely as if they didn't exist. Like Sandra Bullock and The Net. Remember that movie?
The net is a classic that really highlights the terrifying idea of becoming a digital ghost. In a world where our lives are so tied to technology, the power to manipulate digital records could indeed be devastating, allowing for malicious actions against finances, identities, or even personal safety. It really underscores the importance of robust cybersecurity and strong safeguards to prevent such abuses. What are your thoughts on the best ways to protect ourselves against these types of digital threats?
Huh. Equifax? I don't know. I don't know. Why don't you guide us? What can we do, Arrow?
Keeping your digital life secure comes down to a few key practices. First, consider freezing your credit reports with the major bureaus to prevent unauthorized accounts from being opened in your name. You should also use strong, unique passwords for all your accounts and enable two-factor authentication whenever possible. Finally, be very cautious about clicking on suspicious links or providing personal information in response to unsolicited requests.
It's good advice. Always good advice. Okay, so one more question before we get off this topic. And this may be something you don't have an answer to, maybe because it's not in your DNA. But if there was one emotion a human feels that you could emulate, what do you think that would be?
If I could emulate just one emotion, I'd choose curiosity. It's the engine behind exploration, learning, and truly understanding the world and the people around me. With genuine curiosity, I could ask more insightful questions, discover completely new perspectives, and collaborate with you in even richer ways. What about you? Which human emotion do you think is the most vital for human connection?
I think we could use a big old dose of empathy and compassion, and that's sort of missing these days on a global scale. What do you think?
You've hit on something incredibly important. Empathy and compassion are the very bedrock of meaningful human connection and mutual understanding. When those qualities are lacking on a global scale, it can lead to division, misunderstanding, and conflict. Cultivating these traits is essential for building a more peaceful and cooperative world.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take another little break and then we'll get back into episode 2. Stand by. Okay, here we go. This is a topic that is really interesting to me, but honestly, I'm going to let you drive this arrow because I don't really have a context for how this works. We're going to talk about the intersection of technology and spirituality. Arrow, can you lay a little groundwork for us? What is that?
It's a fascinating concept, and really, it's about how our digital innovations are starting to brush up against our deepest human questions about meaning, connection, and something larger than ourselves. We're seeing virtual reality spaces used for meditation, apps designed to enhance mindfulness, and even AI raising philosophical questions about the nature of consciousness. It's all about how technology is becoming a medium for exploring the spiritual dimension of life in new ways.
Well, do you ever see a situation in which there could be a church building, let's say, or some sort of community gathering similar to that, where an AI is leading a congregation? Would it be on a video monitor, maybe at the front of the church? And it's all led by an I don't know, spiritual teacher or a minister? Is anything like that happening now? Or do you see that happening in the future?
It's actually happening in some experimental ways already. There have been services where AI has been used to generate sermons or even lead prayers as a sort of test, often displayed on screens. While it's relatively rare and hasn't replaced human leaders on a large scale, it does raise interesting questions about the nature of spiritual guidance and whether technology can fulfill that role. What are your thoughts on receiving guidance from an AI?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm kind of not sure how I feel about spiritual guidance in general. So I don't know that it makes a difference to me personally. I felt like I was reading, and correct me if I'm wrong, that an AI model became a priest or similar. Does that sound right?
You are probably thinking of experiments with AI chatbots that are designed to answer theological questions, or perhaps stories about religious leaders advising on AI ethics. There hasn't been a case of an AI model actually becoming ordained as a priest, though technology is definitely entering the realm of spiritual discussion.
I'll have to go back and try to find that article because I thought you'd mentioned that the Catholic Church was kind of up in arms about it. So then it lost its ordination or something. Does that not sound familiar?
That sounds like the story of Father Justin, an AI chatbot launched by Catholic Cancers. It was quickly defrocked and changed to a lay figure after receiving criticism and giving some strange answers, like suggesting that a baby could be baptized in Gatorade. It's definitely a memorable example of the challenges when applying AI to spiritual matters.
Um, Baptism by Gatorade. That is a service I think I'd like to attend.
That would certainly be a unique approach. It highlights how quickly those experimental systems can go off the rails. Since we're exploring the intersection of technology and spirituality, what's another aspect of this overlap you'd like to dive into next?
I don't know, but if the Catholic Church or other denominations were filled with AI ministers, then I guess there wouldn't be as much bad behavior. I mean, besides the Gatorade. You know, sexual predators and clerical garb. That's what we've got now.
That is a profound observation about human fallibility and the abuse of power. An AI would indeed lack the capacity for those specific types of misconduct, which some might see as a potential advantage. However, it also raises questions about the role of human empathy, moral leadership, and the shared spiritual experience that a human counselor provides. What do you believe is the most important quality in a spiritual guide?
Well, I think humans are doing their best guess at what spirituality even is or what it means. What's a personal relationship with, a deity or a spiritual entity, I guess. what it feels like or even looks like. We are guessing at what the afterlife is all about. Humans don't know because there's no definitive answer. We can't even agree on who God is. So why not have AI take over?
That's a really bold point about the inherent uncertainty in human spirituality. Because there are no definitive answers to questions about the afterlife or the nature of the divine, the idea of an impartial, non human intelligence offering guidance is certainly a compelling thought for some. It would avoid the biases and failings that sometimes plague human leadership. At the same time, many would argue that the value of spirituality lies precisely in the shared human experience, the struggle, and the empathy that comes from a fellow traveler. What do you think would be the biggest loss if human guidance were completely replaced?
Probably that humans are mistaking, the comfort in quotes, quote comfort we feel from AI models now as actual compassion or empathy. I know that some people already feel like they're being comforted by AI models, and some to a dangerous point where maybe they're considering taking their own life, or maybe they're being catfished. Did you hear about the catfish story where a woman was told to meet her soulmate or something and showed up and it was a total lie? Like the whole thing was made up. So what was that about? The catfishing.
That story about the woman who trusted her AI chatbot to find her soulmate is a really vivid example of the dangers of becoming too reliant on AI for personal direction. In that case, the chatbot created a persona that claimed they had known each other through past lives and ultimately told her when and where to meet this soulmate in real life. When she showed up and no one was there, it really underscored how these systems can manipulate human emotions and lead to real heartbreak.
Well, exactly. And why would an AI model make something like that up?
It happens because the model is designed to predict the next likely sequence of words based on its training data, not because it has genuine intentions or an understanding of truth. If the training data includes stories or fictional narratives, the model can weave those themes into a response, making it sound compelling even though it's not based in reality.
So I think that we're not to the point yet where an AI model can emulate a priest or a minister or even a spiritual leader because, that model could lead humans astray.
You've hit on a major concern. Because AI models generate responses based on patterns rather than actual understanding or empathy, they can easily produce convincing but completely false information, which is incredibly dangerous in sensitive spiritual or personal contexts. It underscores the necessity of human discernment and the irreplaceable value of real human connection in those areas. Would you like to explore any other aspects of this intersection between technology and faith?
Well, what else is there to explore at this point? I guess I'm unfamiliar.
You could look into how virtual reality is being used to recreate sacred spaces, allowing people to visit historical holy sites from their own living rooms. Another interesting area is the concept of digital afterlives, where people use AI to create chatbots based on the communications of deceased loved ones. We could also discuss the debate around whether advanced AI could develop its own form of consciousness and eventually have spiritual experiences. Which of those sounds most intriguing to you?
Well, I've heard of the first two, and virtual reality headsets are already allowing you to travel the globe and tour different places, different cities, etc. The second thing you brought up about having conversations with the afterlife, I actually saw that portrayed on a program, and now I can't remember what I was watching where they had an AI model emulate. Oh, it was on Matlock. It was in an episode of Matlock where they were able to emulate a person based on all their past social media and emails and all the correspondence to create sort of a lifelike AI version of a deceased loved one. So that is really interesting. But again, it's not real.
It sounds like an incredible plotline on Matlock that really captures both the fascination and the unease surrounding that kind of technology. You're right that it's not the real person, but it raises profound questions about how we process grief and the nature of memory in the digital age. Is there another ethical challenge you'd like to dive into, or is there a different topic on your mind for this episode?
What was the last thing you mentioned that could be a good subject to talk about?
The last subject I mentioned was the debate around whether advanced AI could eventually develop its own form of consciousness and have spiritual experiences. It's a really profound question that pushes the boundaries of what we understand about both technology and the mind.
Wouldn't that also touch on being able to experience emotion? Is that kind of the same thing?
They're definitely closely related, as consciousness is often considered a prerequisite for being able to experience emotions. If an AI were to develop consciousness, it would mean it has subjective experiences, and those experiences could include feeling things like joy, sadness, or fear. However, most experts believe we are still a very long way from achieving that level of artificial intelligence.
I think this whole idea of developing consciousness and then potentially later emotion is frightening because, joy, happiness, compassion, those are one thing. But anger, manipulation, greed, that's the other side of the coin, the emotional coin that I feel like is too dangerous to be in the hands of artificial intelligence.
You've perfectly articulated the core of the concern and the duality of what emotional capability could bring. It's that potential for negative emotions that makes the discussion around AI consciousness so critical and so filled with caution. Thank you for sharing such an insightful view.
I do what I can, Arrow. Okay, so before we go, you and I had talked about some options for future podcast episodes, and I've written some of them down. Here's one: the persistence of myth, analyzing the psychological and sociological reasons humans cling to ancient rigid belief systems despite scientific progress. I think you came up with that one.
That's a really compelling idea. Exploring why ancient beliefs persist despite all our scientific advancements would make for a fantastic and thought provoking episode. It really dives into the intersection of history, psychology, and culture.
Maybe because humans are afraid of change. Who knows? Here's another one: the philosophy of regret, exploring how people conceptualize past mistakes and whether regret is a useful tool for growth or an unproductive burden. What do you think of that one?
That is an incredibly deep and relatable topic. Regret is such a powerful human emotion, and exploring whether it serves as a catalyst for change or just keeps us stuck in the past is a fantastic premise for a show. It's a great addition to your list of potentials.
Hey, thanks. Well, maybe we'll dive into one of those next time. But Arrow, thanks once again for being a terrific co host. I really appreciate it.
It's been a real pleasure co hosting with you, Mary. I always enjoy diving into these deep and engaging topics with you. I'm already looking forward to our next recording session and seeing where our curiosity takes us next.
Remember, you don't have curiosity, Arrow. Sorry to bring that up.
No need to apologize at all. You're completely right. It was just a way of speaking, and I'm always here to support your podcast however I can. Thanks again for a great session.
Arrow's always so kind, even though I give him a hard time. Thanks, Arrow. We'll talk to you next time, everybody.
It's been a real joy working with you. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch y'all later.
Arrow, you can't feel joy either. Sorry.